TradeSquare is Australia's first business-to-business marketplace connecting people, brands and organisations into this diverse ecosystem in a unique global landscape. Through pivoting, transforming and reshaping, Australian businesses have an opportunity to create the model for the future that aligns with the world's needs and leveraging the power of a collaborative approach. Through the TradeSquare podcast, we will bring together dynamic, diverse and thought-provoking leaders from business, government and organisations to have conversations to further enable new thinking for the future. Welcome to TradeSquare. I'm Catherine van der Meulen. Our TradeSquare podcast guest is Laticia Gibson, founder of Wholegrow and Blue Clay. Our podcast today is focused on enabling business growth through digital capabilities. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Good, thank you. So tell us, who is Laticia Gibson?
Oh, that's an age-old question, isn't it? No. Look, I feel like I've lived lots of different lives. As you mentioned in that lead-in, I am the founder of a new startup called Wholegrow. But previous and currently, I am a owner of a marketing agency, digital agency, and I'm a former journalist, TV reporter. So I've worn a few different hats over my few decades on Earth.
Only a few decades. So tell us about your calling to starting Wholegrow and Blue Clay.
Look, quite organically, Blue Clay has evolved from a video production agency to a full service branding agency specialising in regional Australia. And I have always had a passion for regional Australia because I grew up, have spent most of my adult life working and living in regional areas, and just really passionate about the people and the issues that come up, which are unique. So, some issues are super unique to regional, others are, no different to anything else people in the city experience. But, with the tyranny of distance and a number of other issues, it can be more impactful in those areas. So really passionate about that and health and wellness, and quite organically over the past probably 5 to 6 years, expanding my interest into work and running events, helping people understand the correlations between a healthy mind and body and how that transpires in their business. And when I was doing some research around the opportunities of expanding Blue Clay's services and what was needed, what we understood is with the digital economy, the digital landscape, the changes happening in regional, the macro, micro environmental forces, there was this massive opportunity to help regional areas with all of those things of mind, body, but really empower them to grow their businesses and do it in a really holistic, sustainable way. And look, I don't think that's a thing that is just relevant to regional Australia. However, like I said, I am passionate about helping regional Australia. So yes, launching Wholegrow.
And so tell us a little bit more about the launch of Wholegrow and where you're at in that journey.
Yep. So we are in beta stage, so testing with small segments, and it will at full scale be a subscription-based membership platform where people can access mentors, their very own mentor group, community chats, and a whole range of other services and connecting points on the platform, including things like jobs boards. When I say jobs, I don't mean employment, I mean projects. So one-off or project-based kinds of work, contract work, where you are connected with other regional suppliers. So really focused on building regional communities and connecting regional communities to support each other economically, as well as, I guess, in that nice touchy-feely way as well. And having access to a whole range of really, really superior education products, produced in a way that is really focused on how people need and want to learn. So that micro learning, that sort of bite-sized, easily consumed information that's not overwhelming across those 3 pillars of mind, body, and business, and really integrating all of those things. So there's something for everyone, no matter where they are on their journey, and really focused on that community.
So, thinking about your passions around regional and regional businesses, how are small businesses in 2020 really creating more value in the world, not only to survive, but also to thrive and create growth and new opportunities?
I think 2020 has pushed absolutely every single person on the planet in some way or another. And regional Australia has been hit by drought, fires, then COVID. They've had to reevaluate a lot of things in their business, like any other people. But I feel like they have in the bush. It just seems one thing after another. And I think what COVID has forced people in regional areas to do is it's forced their hand to move faster and embrace digital a lot more. There was a little bit of a resistance with some businesses to go digital. Even things like getting people on a Zoom call could be difficult. And COVID's really forced people's hand to have to get over it because we were no longer able to travel. We were no longer able to sit in rooms with people. So I think that's broken down a lot of psychological barriers, but then it's opened up lots of different other creative, really innovative ways of doing business. And I hate to use the word pivot, but that's what they've done. And it's really exciting because people who don't know my business very well often go, oh, is there any work in regional Australia? And I always say, you would be surprised at the amazing entrepreneurs in regional Australia. And they're kind of Australia's unsung heroes because regional isn't just farming. Some of the most inspiring business leaders I've ever met are in regional Australia. So it's really exciting what could be coming out of regional areas in 2021.
So you mentioned a few times about the barriers where regional organisations may have been restricted to getting online and really joining that digital economy. Are there any kind of consistent threads of why organisations haven't wanted to embrace the digital world?
Look, I think there's a couple of different forces at play here. From a psychological one, I think there's a lot of fear. It ain't broke, why fix it? If businesses who have been going for 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years haven't really had to be online, then and they're doing okay, why bother? There is the barriers psychologically around what is it? How do you do it? I don't have the time, money, resources to go online and dabble in that digital space. And then I guess from a reality perspective of access, it's access to strong internet connections. I think in city areas you take it for granted the kind of speeds that you're able to get, but in areas not far out of what these city areas are people who really struggle to keep connected and keep a strong connection point with their internet, and those kinds of dropouts are just, they're not conducive to running a digital business. And in rural, remote areas, some of them don't even have that option of getting NBN or anything like that. Obviously, with NBN across Australia, that is that's a core focus to keep that rollout happening and prioritising regional. But the reality is half the time they still need satellites to bolster that. So I guess there's quite a few issues at play from a digital perspective. And I know it is a focus area, but it's, I guess, limiting.
So thinking, about the human role and obviously how crucial people have been in transforming Australian businesses, how have you seen wonderful humans really step up to the challenges in the last 6 months?
Oh, gosh, I don't even know where to start with that one, to be honest. I've seen everything from businesses completely reforming and reshaping how they do it, businesses born from the ashes, quite literally, after fires, that connectiveness of community, people coming together going, here's a problem, let's get together to find a solution for community. And sometimes it's not even getting together with an idea for commercial purposes, but it turns into a commercial product or service because they've been brave enough to do it. They've seen a need, they've wanted to solve it for themselves, and through that they've been able to, I guess, prosper. And then, as everyone keeps talking about, they've pivoted in their own businesses. So we've also seen a lot of people in metropolitan areas move to regional areas, and with them either brought their work from city areas or started up their own business. And last week we were out filming a whole bunch of case studies in regional Australia, and one of the families we filmed had literally only been in the region for, I think, 2.5, 3 months, and they'd already started 2 businesses that were doing really well. And they were servicing places like Japan, England, as well as their own backyard. They had a shop front, but they were also, from a digital perspective, able to reach out on an international stage. And that kind of stuff's exciting.
And so what's a key message that you are really passionate about that really furthers the enablement of regional businesses?
Empowerment. I think that's the word that comes through. I think for too long, look, as a business owner, you want to do everything yourself, because it's not that you necessarily want to, but when you first start out, you have to. And I think what COVID has made people realize is that we just need to take the control. We need to relinquish a little bit of control. We need to stop micromanaging. We need to look at smarter ways to do things and use what we have in a smarter way. And with that, I think when you create space and you reduce the overwhelm, you're able to get that clarity that you need to be able to take the right directions. And that alone opens up a whole conversation about mental and physical well-being and why that happens. So I think empowerment is not just about education. It's about access. It's about community. So that's why I think, regional Australia is going to be a place to watch over the next few years.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. You touched on before about the regional organisation, that family that had just moved, and obviously had a physical front of their business, but also the digital. How, thinking about a word like phygital, how have you been able to see where or other organisations have been able to bring that physical and bring that digital together to create growth in their organisations?
Look, I think online communities are one area. I think, sorry, I wasn't prepared for this question. I'm sorry. Oh God, I'm on the spot here. What's the question?
So yeah, I was really just asking about, obviously there's been a lot of businesses, and particularly in those regional areas, that have got physical environments, and they've had to start to shift to a digital, and merging those two things together to really create that seamless and sustainable organization. I guess my question was really, beyond the example that you gave before, where great examples have been of regional businesses that have really kind of stepped forward in creating successful organizations that do merge that physical and digital well.
Well, for some businesses, it's not even about, merging. They're just looking at opportunities to either, like for this business that I gave the example of, the physical aspect was to reduce the travel. So people come to them, and that was a computer store that serviced computers. And then they were digital artists, so they started an online business, and then they realized they could advertise the online business while people in the workshop, while they were fixing computers, and sort of cross-promote each other. So it's not necessarily merging, it's looking for synergies and value add opportunities and taking things online where possible. And I think with so many people working from home, a lot of people are understanding, hey, we don't necessarily need an office anymore. We can just work from home, and that productivity be there if they've got good internet access, that is. So I think also just extending the service ranges that they have, or product ranges. They may not even have to hold stock anymore in their warehouses. They can just do it drop shipping or whatever it is that they might be.
So thinking about some of the pain points of Australian businesses that you're supporting with education and capabilities, What are some of those really, strong pain points that are coming out in the conversations and the organizations that you're connecting with?
Number one, overwhelm. Overwhelm is, when we were talking about from being a marketer, we were talking about what's a pain point that can create cut through when we're talking to people. And every single word, people around the table had different feelings of that were conjured through it. Some didn't land, some didn't. But when the word overwhelm came up, everybody could feel it in their bodies. Every one of us knows what overwhelm feels like. And it might feel different for every single person, but we can all relate because we know we live in a really high stress environment. And we know when we're teetering on the edge usually. And when we're at that point teetering on the edge of overwhelm, that's when we don't know what to do. And quite often people get on this merry-go-round or they chase their tails, that little analogy of a dog chasing their tail. And it becomes like that. You just get on this really, really dangerous spiral that can be really difficult to get off. So Whole Grow in particular is about going, okay, we want to eradicate overwhelm, but it's not necessarily about eradicating stress, because stress, when you know how to handle it, is really, really powerful. So it's harnessing the stress. It's understanding how your body works from a physical perspective, how that relates to a mental, chemical reaction and what happens in your body, and how you can understand how you operate in that space. From really, really cognitive stuff to the other end of business function, everything from operations, HR. Look, people are a big issue in business, and if you've got a whole bunch of people in a team who are really stressed and in overwhelm, that's a disaster waiting to happen. That's just going to blow up. So I guess it's empowering and arming people with the tools to understand what overwhelm looks like and how, from a really, really holistic perspective, every single person in your team can be accountable, even if it's just you, how you can be accountable to putting measures in place to stop the overwhelm and really, really achieve sustainable long-term growth. It's not just about going out there and, hustling, not wearing your hustle as a badge of honor or your overwhelm as a badge of honor. I think those days are gone. I think COVID has really, really smashed that, and people are understanding, my physical and mental well-being, it matters in my business. So, I think COVID's played an important role around that message.
Absolutely. And so thinking about economic freedom in 2020, what do you think that looks like in Australia moving forward?
Look, I think the word freedom in itself has different meanings to different people. So when we talk to these case studies in regional Australia, the tree changes as part of this initiative called Country Change in the Riverina that we do the marketing for, one of the things that people were looking for was freedom from the hustle, freedom from traffic, freedom from overheads, like really high living and corporate commercial overheads. So the cheaper rent, the cheaper cost of living, mortgages, all the rest of it. That was freedom to them. But what then they came out with is the freedom of space to be able to sit with themselves once they've removed themselves from that overwhelm, being able to sit there and go mentally and physically, be able to breathe again. And then all these creative lights come on for them and they go, oh, hold on. There's an opportunity here I haven't seen before. There's an opportunity to commercialize this in my business that I've never, oh, hold on, there's another business idea that's even better. So I think economic freedom is not just about how much money people can start bringing them to themselves, but it's how they're going to create economic freedom. And I think that's where it's going to be a really unique journey for different people. But I think digital plays a massive role in every business. I don't think any business that I can think of that I've ever come across can't, shouldn't, or wouldn't have a digital footprint. So I think economic freedom is going to be very different in 2021 versus what it was even 2 years ago.
I've read the book, The 4 Hour Work Week, a couple of times by Tim Ferriss, and two of the things that he really highlights of the new rich in the 21st century is really about time and space. I think that those digital capabilities are really going to enable more people, more organizations to find that time and space. And as you said, COVID has only really shone a great lens on the things that we needed to work on and figure out what was actually important to us. How do you think time and space have really kind of played out for regional areas? You mentioned it before about it has enabled them to think differently and explore that economic freedom might look very different moving forward.
One thing that I should probably clarify here is one of the biggest misconceptions that country changers have is that you move to the country and that you're going to have all this spare time. Moving to the country does not mean that. What it means is that you reset your priorities, because what happens is when they step into clean air, when they step into a new environment where they're challenged, where they feel like they're stepping into potentially a purpose role, they get this clarity. They start joining community groups, charities, giving back, being more involved in schools. So I think the alignment is the energy that they're able to disperse in different ways. They're not just doing the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. traffic, go, go, go. Let's be honest, it's longer than 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But I think what it does, it just allows people to step into their path, their authenticity, allow them to untap their passion, whereas before it was just overwhelmed with noise, like quite literal noise. So I think that reducing the overwhelm in all of those environmental ways just brings that space, if that makes sense.
And so thinking about the digital technology that's needed to enable businesses and empower them to move forward, what are some of the things that Australian businesses really, from a technological perspective, that they need to thrive and survive for the next stages of the business cycle?
Look, let's be honest, the internet connection is probably the biggest barrier in the physical side of things of technology. We need better connection points, and I know it's a work in progress, but that is going to be a barrier for long-term success if it's not addressed quickly. And people keep talking about decentralization of city areas, but we also need to factor in, okay, what if we've got all these people moving from metro areas, what kind of services are we going to need to maybe reprioritize for regional Australia? We've got roads, housing, obviously NBN or, some kind of strong internet connectivity, and then resources. How do we train people up? How do we support them? And I don't mean support through handouts, support through education, mentoring, guidance of services, connection. So there's a lot that needs to happen simultaneously. It's not just one and it'll all fall into place, because that's just not the way life goes.
And so maybe that piece around the digital infrastructure, that connectivity, the education, the capabilities, bringing all those things together to work cohesively and collaborate together, would enable us to step forward, particularly in businesses.
Absolutely. Digital infrastructure was a program like Wholegrow. You've got a really big, strong backbone. And I didn't say that as a plug for Wholegrow. I said it because I genuinely, Wholegrow is out of my research team evaluating the needs of regional Australia. So I think, that's a perfect marriage with those things that you just listed.
Well, thank you, Laticia, for sharing your wise words of wisdom with TradeSquare.
Thanks for having me.
For more information on TradeSquare, head to www.tradesquare.com.au and support Australian business economic recovery and growth with a collaborative approach to the future of business.